industrial complex, the system, the industry, it is a beast. It eats Black and Latino people for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Minorities, people of color, the people of the majority. These are the people that are preyed on by the criminal justice system in America. Just like all of you, I had to do my project on 2 movies to expand my knowledge and understanding of the experiences of the people of the global majority. The movies that I chose are The Innocence Files and 13th, which both relate onto the topic of the injustices within the criminal justice system in America. In the 13th Amendment, there's a loophole that essentially allows slavery if you are a prisoner. Due to this circumstance, the loophole was exploited after the Civil War, and many African Americans were arrested for extremely minor crimes, such as loitering. Then, being prisoners, they were once again used for labor, since the 13th Amendment technically allowed it. This is how the country rebuilt its economy following the war. Legal slavery. The 13th documentary brings out the prison system as the greatest shame of the US since independence. American prisons are portrayed as a system that has robbed African Americans of their dignity and the root cause of the most injustices against the people of color. The film portrays the current mass incarceration as worse than slavery that was being practiced before the 13th Amendment. After viewing the film, my personal perception of prison has changed from them being simple correctional facilities to now being dens of injustice for people of color. To truly understand the effects of mass incarceration, we have to return to where it all started. In the early 1970s, the baby boom generation were now adults, and thus because of sheer demographic change, crime rates were on the rise. It became very easy for politicians then to say that the civil rights movements at the time were contributing to the rising crime rates, and thus they criminalized them, to snuff them out and silence them. And with the Nixon era of law and order is where the word crime began to stand in for race.
The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had 2 enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did.
In the land of the free, it's ironic how they have the highest incarceration rates in the world. The United States makes up 5% of the world's population, but has 25% of the world's prisoners. The film also speaks a lot about how the prison labor has become so heavily monetized. A company by the name of Unicor does about $900 million in profit annually, and how do they do it? Prison labor. Partnerships between correctional industries and private businesses are a rapidly growing segment of a multi-billion-dollar industry in America. We talk about sweatshops in East Asia and cringe at them exploiting poor, almost free labor, but we don't realize it's happening right next to us in America. Every day there are more and more corporations in America who are investing in free labor. It's everywhere, from sports, fashion, furniture. Victoria's Secret and JCPenney had to switch suppliers once they were exposed for exploiting inmates and profiting off their punishment. Not everyone goes on trial. If every single person had a trial, the entire justice system would collapse. It often comes down to people being offered plea deals. For example, you could accept a plea deal and be guaranteed 3 years in prison, or you can go for a trial and have the chance to take 30 years in prison if you lose. As a result of this, 97% of people do not even go for a trial and instead take a plea bargain. The film also highlights the tragedy of Kalief Browder, a 22-year-old New Yorker who committed suicide after being held in Rikers Island for 3 years, awaiting trial on charges of having a stolen backpack. Browder's courage is evident in his refusal to take a plea bargain for something he didn't do. Yet the violence he faced during his imprisonment led him to take his own life after release. Similarly to Kalief Browder, The Innocence Files follows the story of two innocent black men who were racially profiled and incarcerated for capital murder on the account of bite mark evidence. Levon Brooks was the first, and 4 months later, Kennedy Brewer was incarcerated as well. While in prison, they wrote to the Innocence Project, and the Innocence Project actually found their letters and began to dig into their case. The deeper the Innocence Project dug, the easier it became to prove Levon Brooks and Kennedy Brewer did not commit those crimes. We learned that Courtney's sister's questioning was coerced by the interrogator. The young sister was saying the most outlandish statements that didn't even seem to make sense. We also learned that another suspect, Justin Johnson, was dismissed even though he committed home invasions and attempted sexual assaults in the same community. But because they were focused on teeth marks, he was excluded from the process. When the Innocence Project reran the evidence with new forensic techniques, they found the convicted felon Justin Johnson matched all the DNA, and Kennedy Brewer matched none. 2 confessions later, Kennedy Brewer and Levon Brooks were freed in a special hearing. Wrongful convictions harm far more than just one person. They expand the suffering for the victims by delaying their justice. They traumatize new people like loved ones of the innocent men and women behind bars. They even allow actual perpetrators to get away with more crimes. If the bite mark evidence in the first case hadn't been so faulty, the second murder may have never happened. In conclusion, the United States justice system has led to some good people being portrayed as thugs. The loss of innocent lives from police brutality, the disruption of many colored communities, and inmate exploitation for free labor. It may look hard to achieve equality and fairness despite one's color and ethnic group. However, with the correct policies and everyone on board to speak up against racism, the next generation may not have to suffer at the hands of an unjust justice system.